There's nothing wrong with taking a moment to be human, and I think that's something I've tried to model for my daughter is I haven't explicitly said, but there's already a lot of evil and bad in the world. You
Yeah.
don't need to bring more of it because I'm a big believer in there's no such thing as good or bad emotions. Emotions are just emotions. Like happy and sad and angry are all just emotions. It's how we respond and act that gives it the labels. As you say that, what makes me think of is we always have choice in every moment of how we act or how we respond, right? There's a saying I came across years ago and it said, stop being so afraid of what could go wrong and start getting excited for what could go right.
Welcome to the Daughter Podcast, where fathers become everyday heroes in their daughters' lives. Grow, evolve, and lead with love. Here's your host, Oscar Pena.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Daughter Podcast. Oscar here, your fellow growing girl dad. Today with another fellow growing girl dad, I have Christopher Veal, who is the host of the Vulnerable Man podcast, who I was honored to be on. But today we get to flip the table and put him on the hot seat. And really, we're going to talk about being girl dads and just figuring out how to be better men for our families and for our daughters. Chris, man, how are you today?
I am good. I'm looking forward to this conversation, Oscar. And I just want to say for those that haven't listened to the episode you were on, go back and check it out. I love the conversation you and I had.
Yeah.
And we got to go to some interesting places as well. And of course, we talked about being girl dad. So, that's part of the conversation.
That inevitably has to come up.
Right.
And I would second that. Go back and listen to that because essentially, if you guys don't, you probably miss a bunch of riff that's going on today.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you've ever talked to Chris, you will know he's just super relatable. We sat there and we kind of joked like we could probably sit here for 2 hours,
right?
And then get the boss in the back kind of giving us the look like, what are you doing?
Right.
But yeah, so I'm super excited to have you, brother. And like I said, I want to flip the table a little bit and start getting your version and your perspective of being a girl dad. So
happy to.
With all that said, bring us into Christopher Veal's life a little bit about your background, your family, and how you got to sit in front of the podcast.
Sure. The short version is, and you mentioned the one that's the most important role I have. I'm the father to a 16-year-old daughter. And so that is hands down the most important job I've ever had and I will ever have. So super proud of my young lady. I also when I am doing my real work, I like to say, I do executive coaching and leadership development. So I work with organizations and leaders to help them, I like to say, be the reason their people stay, not the reason that they quit. Because we've probably all known someone or we've worked for someone that was the reason we left that job. And so if I can help leaders not be that, that's what I love. And the beautiful thing about it is I get to help them be a little more vulnerable in the process. And so that's part of my own personal mission in the world is to bring about healthier masculinity so that I can leave this world better for my daughter than the world that I inherited. And I live in Southern California. You may see my dog wandering around. We have a 5-year-old boxer puppy, and I call him a puppy because he's still very much like that. Yeah. And, we're taking this thing called life one day at a time and following this adventure.
Well, welcome to the club. If you didn't
right?
know you were
I didn't get a manual of mine. I don't know about you.
I'm still trying to find it. I was just talking to Taylor, who I had a conversation with earlier today, and I was like, dude, I fly for my job a lot, and sometimes we have issues with the plane, right? Mm-hmm. And it translates right to life. Like, I'm like, I feel like I'm building this plane as I'm moving.
Right.
And some days I'm like, I think it's crashing. Like I'm doing everything as possible to, to keep it up in the air. And other days I'm like underneath trying to fix something. And I come up and I'm like, wait, what's going on? I have no clue what's going on. Yep. And then other days, very little, but other days it feels like, hey,
it's on cruise control, autopilot.
Yeah, there's no turbulence. What's going on?
Then you're like, what's wrong? You're waiting for the next thing to happen, right? Yeah,
brother.
Welcome to fatherhood.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. It's wild, man. You mentioned making the world better for your daughter, leaving it better than you found it, right? And that's ultimately, I think that's why you and I clicked so well, because when we were talking, that's the path that we're taking, right?
Right.
Yes, I want to be, this is a selfish endeavor. You all have heard me say that. This is me learning from Chris, turning off the recording and going to implement. It's 100% selfish. I want to be better for my daughters. But I believe in the bottom of my heart that as we do this, as we have this conversation, and as we talk about community, which I know you're very big on, we're building something that even if you can't be the guy that like says, hey, Chris, can you help me out? Mm-hmm. We're building something where they can come and hear Chris talk and realize, oh, he's already gone through this. Let me see how he did this, right?
Yeah.
And we're helping by virtue of this.
Right.
And so it's really critical that we leave these here and that they're in earshot of someone else.
Right. Well, one of the things you said when you were on my podcast is you talked about there may be one day that your daughters go back and listen to this.
Yeah.
And hear about the man you were and the man you were working to become. And that's one of the things that I just really want to underscore for everyone, because I'm grateful. First of all, I'm excited and grateful to be on this podcast and this conversation with you, because it's always great to me to talk about being a girl dad, because there's something different about it. I'm not taking away from the dads that have boys, but there's something different about being a girl dad. But I loved your story that you shared about why you created this, because it's not necessarily that we have to fix everything, but the more we can normalize these conversations and help other dads start to realize, okay, I'm not the only one that's maybe struggling with that or is celebrating that. That's how we make all the men be better dads, because they don't feel like they have to do it alone. So thank you for creating this space too.
Oh, well, thank you for coming over here and sitting with us.
Yeah.
So let's get this going. I mean,
yes,
this is going to be fun. We talk about masculinity in your show a lot. We talk about the connection between masculinity and vulnerability, or the disconnect between masculinity and vulnerability.
Right.
One thing that I've found as 100% girl dad, 3-time, I would say, 3-time champion, but I don't think I'm winning.
3 times the charm, something like that. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Right. Is that there's been a lot of learning about myself in ways that I would have never thought of ever.
Right.
Even if I thought of being a parent, I still never thought of the ways that I have grown and in the things I've learned about myself through the fatherhood of raising these girls.
Right.
Tell me a little bit about that, because you have had, obviously, your show, and you've had men on there talk exactly about that, the growth that they're getting from connecting masculinity and vulnerability, but also from not even knowing that the vulnerability side is there until we get into these situations.
Right. Well, I mean, there's probably 17 different directions we can go, so I'll pick one and we'll go where we go. But I think the thing that is important for me to name here is when I became, and so we waited to find out if we were having a boy or a girl. So that was a whole conversation with my wife at the time. And she wanted to find out. I didn't. And I said, there's so few things that we get as surprises in life. Why wouldn't we? So we went back and forth a little bit about it. And finally she said, I said, if you want to, great, but please don't tell me. I do want to find a surprise. And she eventually said, you know what, let's wait and see. So it was kind of cool in that regard, because we didn't know. And so we had to pick out a boy name and a girl name. But one of the things that becoming a father to a daughter really shifted in me is it had me start to look at, how do I interact with women? Now, I wasn't being a jerk or being an a-hole before that, but it had me really start to look at what were the ways that I was interacting with women. Now, I was raised by a single mother, so I also think I had a slightly different perspective being raised by her than maybe guys that are brought up in a mother and father household, or we're beyond that now. We're in a world where there's all kinds of dynamics. But it had me start to think about, who's the man I want to be? And my father-in-law, he passed away a number of years ago, but he said to me when she was born, he said, you are the first man she will ever love. And that hit me in a way that I couldn't even imagine at the time. And it really, I was just like, wow, I am setting the standard. And so it got me really mindful of, how do I want to behave and interact with her? Because how I treat her will be the model for how she expects men to treat her in the world, and what she will or won't tolerate. And so with that, I was like, I got to show up. And so that was an important choice for me.
That's a big weight. It's a big weight to realize you have, and then to pick up and carry. And I say pick up because unfortunately we've seen men who choose not to pick up that weight.
Right.
And then more unfortunately, we see the young girls, the adult women that carry that weight because the man didn't.
Their fathers weren't there. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And you could find story after story after story on that.
Mm-hmm.
When I think of that, it brings me back to my um infancy as a father. No pun intended, right? Like
Right. But bum.
she gets there, and I don't think I realized that weight.
Okay.
This like you are the man that you're the example, the blueprint
Hmm.
of what she's going to expect to
Right.
get and not get and all these things. I felt the weight of a father, I think. I felt like I need to provide, I need to do these things, I need to learn because I don't know anything now. Like I felt, you know how
Hmm.
like we're young, we think we know everything, and then all of a
Right.
sudden they get here and you're like, I don't know
I
anything.
have no idea what I'm doing here. Right.
Especially
Like we
with
said,
girls.
mine didn't come with an instruction manual.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know how to raise a girl. Like,
Hmm.
come on. So I don't think I felt that weight until later when I started to realize, like, and I can't tell you when exactly it hit me, but it wasn't that far out. I think it was just that all of a sudden you make that connection
Hmm.
as you're holding her or you're watching her do something, and then you just and so the weight just felt triple,
Yeah. Yeah.
like triple heavy, right? Like all of us, like yes, I had the fatherhood thing, but now I'm like, holy crap, I can screw this up royally.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing I'm also going to say, yes, we go to that place, but what we also don't think is, wow, I could do an amazing thing here too,
Yes,
right? But you notice how we
absolutely.
often go to the I don't want to screw it up, right?
Yeah,
So I like to, I'm a big believer in look at both sides, right?
yeah,
You know, yes. And listen, we both have military backgrounds. So
yeah,
we look at the world in a different lens.
yeah,
And I often I'll plan for the worst so that
yeah,
any surprises, I'm prepared for. But there's a saying I came across years ago, and it said, stop being so afraid of what could go wrong and start getting excited for what could go right.
yeah,
And
yeah,
sometimes I need to just remind myself of that and go, yeah, like maybe this situation is really crappy right now, but how can I show up in a way that's going to help my daughter or the people in my life that matter, feel like there's possibility and not necessarily always looking for the worst case.
yeah. Is there a point that you can point to, um, where you felt that shift where like, oh no, let me be excited about the possibility. Let me stop worrying about the
Yeah.
worst.
I mean, the simple answer is I don't know if I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
sure there has been, but again, so my daughter just turned 16 last year. She's gonna be 17 this year. Driving
Crazy.
was a whole new adventure. So where we had kind of gotten to a place where I'm like, life is good. Also, it's like, oh goodness, now she's got to drive. And I have to remember as I'm trying to help her learn how to drive,
Yeah.
first of all, I have to forget that I know a lot more than she does. I had
Right.
decades of experience. And so
Right.
I had to remember sometimes to just sit back, like literally sit back in my chair, take a breath, and just shut up.
Yeah.
Right. So to your question about a specific point, I don't know that there was one where I just said, oh, it clicked. There's probably multiple little moments along the way. But something I want to point to that you were talking about a moment ago is yes, we are that first model
Hmm.
for our daughters. But the other thing that they're also watching is how are we interacting with our partner?
Right.
Because it's not just how we treat them,
Right.
but like my wife, now my ex-wife, whole different story, but how I showed up in that relationship,
Hmm.
that was going to model for my daughter what to expect in a relationship.
Yep.
It was funny. So she's a Girl Scout. We just had a Girl Scout booth earlier today selling cookies. And this couple walks in yelling at each other as they go in. And she just kind of looks at me and I'm like, yeah, that's probably not too healthy. And as they come out a few minutes later, they're cussing at each other. And I said,
Oh man.
yeah, kiddo, that's not what you want to aspire to. She's
Right.
like, yeah, that doesn't look very healthy. I said, no, it's
Yeah.
not. And so it was just a good reminder for me of she notices those things. And
Yeah.
so, the way that we can create more examples for them to see it, I think that's part of our job too. And it
Yeah.
doesn't mean we have to be perfect, right? But when troubles come up in a relationship, if you're willing to lean in and have those conversations, that's what they're going to see. And that's what they're going
Yep.
to model and emulate later in life.
And I would be willing to bet that you have to extrapolate that even further, right? How does my dad interact with the waiter? How does my dad interact with
Right. With
the
lots of
person at
people.
the counter
Yep.
when their flight's delayed?
Yep.
When everything went wrong because of the company that you're
Right.
dealing with, whatever that
Mhm.
is. And now I want to see how he's reacting to it,
Right.
right?
Right.
How
They
does,
are they are always watching. As much as
yes.
we think they're not paying attention, especially when they're younger, oh,
Yeah,
they are soaking it all up.
they really are.
Yes, they
My
are.
my daughter, we traveled a couple of years ago in the airport, and I I don't think I was not paying attention, but you hear it a lot at the airport, right? Someone's going off on the
Mhm.
agent there because something's happening.
Right.
It wasn't extreme, but my daughter, my middle daughter, she was 8 at the time or something like that, and I didn't like bring it up or anything. We happened to start walking, and we go get food or what have you, and then
Mhm.
she just it almost felt like she had like whatever she watched and listened just percolated, and
Right.
then when we went to go sit down, she's like, "Why was that man doing?" And and so
She was processing it. Yeah.
yes, exactly, and I wanna believe it's she was asking it in that manner because she's never seen me do that, and I can
Okay.
honestly say I'm not saying that I've never done that. I
Right.
can honestly say I've never done that in front of my daughters, and I've as I've grown up, I've gotten, I've learned a lot, right?
Right. We all do, right? Yes.
There's I'm to the point where it's like that person right there doesn't make policy, like, right?
Right. Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
trying to keep their job. They're doing what they're supposed to be doing, whatever.
Right. Yeah.
But she was thinking of that because I don't she's never seen me react like that to a
Mhm.
stranger out in the world.
Kudos to you on that.
Now, but here's the kicker. How many times have I reacted like that in our home?
Right. Yep. Yep.
Right? And so am I giving her this normality of like, hey, we don't do that to people, but we could do it in the house.
Right. Which,
Right?
and here's the ironic thing, we don't do that to strangers, but
Yes.
people we love and care about, we can treat like that, right? Now, maybe
Exactly
that's not
right.
the connection she's making, but
I
who
hope not.
knows?
Right?
Yeah, I hope not. I hope not.
Because I mean it, one thing I've learned recently is how, and this is, you're probably going to be much better acquainted with this than me. I have a teenager in the house, right? And some days are um
Challenging?
high energy, right?
It's a very
Like
good way to put it, yes.
high emotion, high
Right,
energy,
right.
and I've literally sat there. I'm like, I know you don't act like this in school. Like, what the heck is going on? And talking to Dr. Emerson, for example, it's like she's like, she came home. She is in a
Feel
safe
safe.
environment. She
Yes.
can now do
Let
the thing,
yeah.
right? Release all this energy that maybe she pent up over there. And,
Mhm.
14, 15, 16-year-old girls, their world is, in my opinion, is just insane.
Yeah,
Uh,
I can't even fathom it.
right. And so this is the safety. But it's so hard, brother, to like,
Mhm.
and it's a vulnerable thing. I know it may not sound like it, but it's like for me to be able to take that, say, all right, this is her safe space. Like
Mhm.
now we make it a point, like, hey, emotions, cool, got it. Actions, totally different. Like you can't
Right,
act
you're
like that, right?
responsible for that, yes.
Exactly. But it's just so interesting that we show one side to strangers,
Mhm.
um, because I don't even know why. Like that's just how we've been taught, right?
Right,
But then when we're home, it's so easy to just flip and
right,
the switch goes off because emotions, because something didn't get done, because we are also in our safe spot,
right.
right? And we have also kept it together throughout the day.
Mhm.
Um, but again, the biggest thing for me is to remember their frontal cortex is still not
Right,
developed.
right,
Mine may not be developed because of things I've done to it,
right.
but uh, it
Right,
technically should be done, right?
right,
So
right,
I need to be the responsible one. But it's really interesting that we have that difference, and
right.
it's something that hit me when we had the conversation. When she's like, "Hey, how come that guy acted like that?" I was like, "Oh, sometimes people have a bad day, whatever." Trying to give her reality,
Mhm.
and then realizing like, but wait, what is she seeing from me, and how come she's never asked me that
Right.
about me?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. As you say that, what makes me think of is we always have choice in every moment of how we act or how we respond, right?
right.
And, I remember Viktor Frankl talking about, not that I heard Viktor Frankl talk about it, but, he talked about
Yeah.
the idea of, in between that, whatever, like the stimulus and the response, we have that
Yes.
moment we can choose how to react. And I try and keep that in mind sometimes because even like you talking about somebody in the airport, I remember years ago I was traveling, weather delays. Like I knew when I got to my connection, there was no way because we were already probably like 30 minutes beyond. So I'm like, there's
Right.
storms everywhere. So I'm like, all right, first thing I'm doing is I'm going to the gate, find the
Right.
ticketing agent. How do I get home? Right. And as I'm standing in line, the guy in front of me is just exploding on this poor woman behind the counter. And I'm pretty sure she isn't responsible for the weather. She didn't delay his flight. And so, when he left, I just walked up and I said, hey, thank you for trying to help us out. I realize this is crazy. I know I've already missed my flight. I'm just hoping you can help me figure out how I'm going to get home. And like you could see her just physically like relax,
Take a breath.
right? Because she was bracing herself. Now, I'm not saying I made her day, but again, I don't have to unload on this woman because it's not going to accomplish anything.
Right.
I remember my grandmother used to say, you catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar.
Yeah.
And so when I go to the grocery store, as the person's checking my stuff out, I'll look at their name tag and I'll say, hey, Jamie, hey, Bill, how you doing today? Like there's nothing wrong with taking a moment to be human. And I think that's something I've tried to model for my daughter is I haven't explicitly said, but there's already a lot of evil and bad in the world. You don't need to bring more of it.
Yeah.
Be the reason somebody smiles today, even if it's for just a moment. And that's the way I try and interact. And I think I model. And I think it's showing up because I see her doing things sometimes like it too. And so that's one thing that I'm proud of is like, she's a good human, and my ex-wife and I, we've done a great job of co-parenting her, so I know we had a partner. A lot of people say your kid's great. And I go, she's a great kid. I'm like, but we also had a hand in it too. So, we got to take credit where credit is due sometimes.
Yeah. And I think that we forget about that because we get what we get at home, the safe space.
Right.
And I've, especially this year, like I've tried to make it a point to think or to understand that we get what we get here because they are modeling what we asked them to model out.
Right.
And that takes a lot of work, especially with a less developed frontal cortex, right? So that takes a lot of work. And then you look at the 5-year-old is easy for me. And I say that in the sense of like, I can understand how she acts sometimes. She's 5, right? But also she's allowed me to see, like, you hold it together all day in school. They made you take a test. You're in kindergarten. Like, that's a lot of stress for a kindergartner, right?
Right.
And so she'll come home and, dude, like the simplest thing, like, she'll drop something, boom, bomb goes off, and I stand there and I'm almost, I kid you not, I'm almost trying to like cover my mouth because I just want to laugh. I'm like,
right,
how is
which
this?
Definitely won't help at all, right?
No.
Yeah. Right.
But then you flip the switch and the 14-year-old can have the same reaction, and I don't want to laugh. I'm like,
right,
hey, wait a minute, like this is not happening, right?
Yeah.
And I think there's got to be some discernment. Obviously, 5 and 14, much different. But I also think there's got to be some equality, I guess the word is like giving them the same, not the same treatment. How do I say this? Like the same level of patience.
Right.
Maybe.
There is. Well, but I think there is a different level of expectation because You're right. A 5-year-old, you're not expecting to react and respond with the same level of maturity that a 14-year-old is. And you're right. A 14-year-old, like even a 14-year-old girl, way ahead of a 14-year-old boy. One of the things that I can't lie, I'm grateful my daughter sometimes comes home and says, Dad, she calls me Papa, high school boys are dumb. I said, yes, they are, kiddo. And I said, unfortunately, I don't think they get much smarter in college. Like their brains take a little longer to catch up, but deal with it. But I think it is okay that we work to help that 14-year-old start to understand that, yes, you can still have emotions, because I'm a big believer in there's no such thing as good or bad emotions. Emotions are just emotions. Like happy and sad and angry are all just emotions. It's how we respond and act that gives it the labels, but they're just emotions. And so I try and teach my daughter that, because often if somebody's in what we call a not a good emotion, they're sad, we want to try and make them better. And part of what I've tried to do as a parent and as a father is I want to help her understand the emotions that are going on. And then she gets to choose what she wants to do with it. But I don't say you can't have that emotion, because when we try and bottle them up, and that's the thing that a lot of young men get taught is, I use the example a lot, and I'm going on a tangent, but we're going down this rabbit hole anyways.
Let's do it.
You look at a little girl and a little boy, about 3 or 4 or 5 years old. If they fall down and scrape their knee, we treat them about the same. We put our arm around them. We say, "Hi, how you doing, kiddo?" Like, it's okay, and we nurture them. And then around 6 or 7 years old, they start to get different messages. And the little girls, we still nurture. And I'm speaking in a very general sense, but it's like, hey, and we still nurture them. But the little boys, what do we start telling them? Hey, suck it up. Don't cry. Rub some dirt on it. Be a man, right? Yeah. Telling a 9-year-old boy, be a man. the worst insult you can get as a young boy is don't be a girl, or you're like
Yeah.
a girl, right?
Yeah.
And so the message that we're unconsciously telling them is you can't have emotions, or you can only have certain emotions. And so
Yeah.
we wonder why they start to stifle these things early on. Don't even get me started about sports. I'm all about sports, but the messages they hear in those places too. And so we are training these young men to suppress emotions, and then we wonder why later on they have difficulty talking about it and living into them, and they explode
Right.
in unhealthy ways. So all right, I'll get off my soapbox for a minute.
Well,
Clearly I'm
funny
a
you
little
say
bit
that.
passionate about this.
I was just watching The Sandlot,
Yes.
and that
Yes.
was the trigger, right? Like when they're the two little,
Right.
I don't even know what they're called, the two little gangs, when they're
Yep.
arguing, it's like, you play ball like a girl, and that was like, what?
That was it. You just
That's
crossed
right.
the DMZ, my man. Yeah.
That's right.
Yep.
It was time to go. You know, I don't I agree with you. I don't know that, and again, this is,
Yeah.
knuckle
And by all means
dragger
disagree.
Oscar.
Like I like conversations like this. Yeah.
I I want to believe there's some validity to it. Maybe not all of it, but in let me rephrase this. I'm not talking about the emotion, because you're right. What happens is that we are taught that the emotion is not good,
Hmm.
right? And what ends up happening, and I know you know this better than anybody, for men, uh, fear, anxiety, you name it. There's like two others,
Hmm.
particular ones. There's a bunch, but two others always present as anger,
Right.
right? Because we we didn't figure
We
these
just
things
call it
out,
anger and we don't go deeper.
right? I'm just mad, like,
Yep.
but why? Like, because it's dumb, or because it's, whatever.
Right.
And that's something that I think inadvertently, and probably in a bad way, maybe my daughters have taught me. Like, I have gone off in anger. Well, let me rephrase that. My words sound angry,
Right.
but it's when I sit back, now that I'm able to, like, sit down and think through what just happened, right? And I'll tell you guys this, like, it happens a lot, right?
Hmm.
I go do something and I come back, I'm like, that is not how I wanted that to go.
Right.
Like,
Yep.
but I come back, I start thinking about it, I'm like, oh, that came out as anger, but it was actually this,
Right. Right.
right? And it happens a lot for fathers, in fear of danger of XYZ,
Right. Right.
right? Um, I think Dane Cook had like a skit about it where he's like, they come home and the door's open, someone might have broken in, and instantly the dad is like, get back. Like, it's like anger right away,
Right.
right? But it's like
Yeah.
fear. And I think it's because it was just, I don't know if it's easier, but it was just the norm, that's how you do it,
Hmm.
right? You fell down, you scraped your knee. Hey, go and get up. Like, life is going to kick you down. Just get back
Right.
up, right?
Right.
And there's a lesson there. I get that.
Yes.
But how we go about it may not be it, right? And the reason I said I may disagree with a little bit of that was that I do still think that and again, maybe this is just the programming, right?
Hmm.
But I want to be the tough person in my household. I want to do that.
Right.
I want to be like the strong oak, if you will,
Yeah.
in the home, right?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. So I absolutely agree with that. But I think where I'm trying to point to is we often narrow the scope of what it means to be a man. And we say you have to be like, when we talk about that typical man box thinking, you got to be strong. You got to be that provider. You can never let them see you sweat. You should never be wrong. Like, it's all you have to be all these things. And for
Mm,
me, I'm in the space of like, what's it like to be that? And,
mm,
like I'm a combat veteran. I went to Iraq, right? I saw some stuff that people shouldn't see.
mhm.
That messes with you. But if I have to walk around every day saying like I'm invincible and bulletproof and nothing bothers me, like I'm
Yeah,
just fooling myself. My daughter has seen me cry. Now, me 20 years ago probably would have been like, there's no way that's going to happen.
right.
But what for me, what's important is I want her to see that I can have this full expression of what it means to be human. And so to the thing you were talking about a moment ago, I think part of where we can do a better job as society is start to help, especially young men. I think young women do better because women tend to talk about emotions more, but help them build more of a vocabulary. So just like you talked about, it's okay, I'm feeling angry. Well, if that's the only word I know, that's what I'm going to color all of those emotions
Yeah,
with. But it's like, okay, so what's underneath that? Oh, like I'm frustrated. Oh, what's that? And being willing to. And so if we can start to help, and again, I'm going to say young men, it's not that young women don't struggle with it, but the more we can normalize those conversations, or
Yeah.
for example, when you have that reaction, being able to come back and say, hey, I realize this is what was going on, kiddo, right? Like, I just want you to know, I know it sounded like I was angry, but here's what was going on. That helps them start to see too.
Right.
And so I think the more we can show those examples, the more we can help them see a broader range of how we can show up as men and as fathers.
Yeah. I completely agree with that. And that situation that I just spoke of was just that. It was me
Right.
coming back,
Yeah.
realizing messed that up in
Yep.
these ways. It
Yep.
came out as anger. My daughter felt it as
Hmm.
anger towards her, where
Right.
really in reality it was this is a fear of mine.
Yeah.
This is what I felt, and I apologize for the way it came out, right?
Hmm.
Not necessarily apologizing for what I need to get across to you, but it should not
Right.
have came out this way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're right. Maybe it is the uh, teaching a Neanderthal vocabulary, right? I mean, it's
Hmm.
we're talking about not being able to express that.
Right. Well, I just want to say kudos to you for going back and having that conversation with your daughter too, because there's a lot of guys that would have just been like, oh, well, it happened.
Right.
And they just stuff it down, which then teaches their kids to stuff it
Yeah.
down. Like, so the fact that you were willing to say, hey, here's what it was, like, that's important because that's
Yeah.
modeling for her. Okay, sometimes you're not going to get it right. You don't have to be perfect. By the way, we're human. We're going to be
Yeah.
imperfect.
Yeah.
But that sometimes you can make mistakes and you still get to be in relationship and figure out how do we move forward.
Well, I think that's something they taught me because I think you mentioned a second ago if you had this had been me 12 years ago, it's not the same,
Right. Yep.
right?
Yep.
And and that's something that you and I briefly talked about before where is it possible? Let me rephrase that. I rephrase a lot, obviously.
That's all good.
I think it's possible to realize that my daughters have created a different person, have
Hmm.
made a different person.
Absolutely.
Now, the one thing I always argue with folks when I say that is you have to allow that to happen,
Yes.
right?
Absolutely.
Lower the ego, figure out that you have learning to do, and then get on learning.
Hmm. Yep.
And they've taught me a lot in that manner. I've mentioned this before as well that I don't know that I would have done that or at least learned it as quickly had I had a son first. Because I think I had, to your point, I probably already had a playbook or blueprint of, well, if I have a boy, this is how I raise him,
Hmm.
right?
Yep.
Whereas when I had my daughter, I feel like I had to just go figure this out because I had zero idea. I'd never even thought about having a daughter,
Right. Right.
right?
You know what? I think what I'd say to that is maybe. And here's why. Because again, like we maybe have this, and again, I've got friends that are fathers to sons, and some of them tell me, I thought I knew what I was doing and I didn't
Mm,
either. So I think like I hear what you're saying. And I also think that like when we step into parenthood, we don't know,
yeah.
and you're right.
And a
If I had a
bias.
son, like I probably would have shown up differently.
Mm,
Would I have been exploring what masculinity meant to me? And, like, maybe not. I don't know. But I also know if I keep playing the what if game, I can go down 14,000 rabbit holes
yeah,
and who knows if
absolutely.
any of them are legit. Right.
Yeah,
So part of what I'm looking at is who am I today? Who's the man I am? And who's the father that I'm being? And how do I keep doing a good job at that?
yeah,
Right. Not a perfect job, a good
yeah.
job.
How have you been able to flip that switch for some of the men that you talk to?
I think it's conversations like this.
Mm,
I think back to, so I grew up like I was a child of I was born in the 70s, but like a lot of the influence that I saw in media and stuff was in like the late 70s, early 80s. And when I think back to the examples of fatherhood that I would see on TV,
hmm.
the typical fathers were kind of the goofy, the
Yeah.
bumbling dad. Like
Yep.
you knew he loved the kids and he'd take care of them, but you kind of always wondered, are we gonna have to call 911? Is the house gonna burn
Right.
down? Like, can we really trust dad with the kids?
Yeah.
And when mom would come home and the kids were okay, it was kind of like, oh, and we'd get the comic laugh track.
Right.
And so if that's the examples that men grew up seeing, first of all, it tells young men, your bar's only here,
Yeah. Absolutely.
right? And so then when the women in their lives are like, I need you to be up here, we're already creating a disproportionate expectation.
Hmm.
But if you don't see the example, so to your question, how do we shift that? I think the more we have conversations like this and men hear other men talking about how they're showing up, how they're not necessarily falling into that madmen stereotype
Mm-hmm.
of, what you're supposed to be as a dad. I think that's helping. And I'm a big believer in, I think you and I talked about this when you were on my podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I don't fault the men that came before us because
Right.
they were operating off of the examples they had,
Right.
right? A lot of the guys that I talk to, when I ask about what their relationships with their fathers were like,
Mm-hmm.
a number of them, it's saddening how many of them say, I don't know that I ever saw my dad cry, or like, I knew he loved me, but he never said it.
Yeah.
And so again, those guys were doing the best they could with what they have. But the more we have conversations like this, the more guys go, oh, wait, I can show up like that. I
Right.
tell my best friend, I love you. Now, probably we've known each other almost 30 years.
Yeah.
We didn't do that initially, but the first time I remember doing it, I was like, I'm not sure how this is going to go, but like he just said it right back.
Right.
But I knew I loved him. I knew he loved me.
Yeah.
And so again, it's like we have this kind of like bro code that you're not supposed to say that kind of stuff, but you can care about your guys. But so I don't know.
Right.
I don't know where I'm going with all this.
Well, it's I think we have a platform where we get to learn these up front. And I mentioned that earlier, right? It's something that for me has been transformative to be able to sit down and have these conversations and sometimes leave the conversation like, I don't know if I agreed with that, but
Yeah.
my brain is moving. Like it is like,
Right.
Like the thought process of going through and thinking in a different perspective for a second. And then the thing I like to point out is not taking what I like and what I don't like, taking what works for the situation that I'm in and
Right.
what doesn't work, hold off.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
The conversations that you and I have, that I have with other folks, the building of the community enter these conversations. Really, the feedback I've gotten is that, as I mentioned earlier, even if they don't call Chris for help,
Mm-hmm.
right? They
They're
can't,
thinking.
if they can't physically dial the number because of pride, ego, whatever you
Right.
want to call it. You turn this on in the car and you're like, oh,
Mhm.
I don't know if I agree with that, but now my brain's moving,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
It's refreshing to hear that when I get it for the show, and I'm sure you get it as
Mhm.
well. Like, oh man, I'm glad it made you think.
Right.
I'm not here to tell you anything you probably already don't know or you haven't heard from someone. I probably should preface every episode by saying this is not medical, psychological, professional
Listen, if
help.
they think you are giving medical advice, they're already like, I mean, like that. Yeah. Right.
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 But
Yeah.
you see what I mean? Like, it's like, I'm glad that even just the conversation
Yeah.
is having an impact somewhere, because even if you couldn't figure out how to ask for the help, you heard it.
Right.
And now you have a tool in the toolbox, and
Yep.
who knows, that might have made a difference, right?
Yeah.
I had a conversation recently with a dad that said that he just didn't really think much about his presence. He just was like and
Mhm.
really what it sounded like to me was autopilot, which
Okay.
happens to all of us,
Mhm.
right? Especially when things are going well, smooth,
Mhm.
and it's so easy to get into autopilot,
Right.
right? I mean, I've been guilty of it. My wife has called me out, like, "Hey, are
Yep.
you even here right now?"
Guilty. Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And what I told him was, if we can help one person with intentionality by
Mhm.
having a conversation, imagine what happens when they actually put it into practice.
Right.
That
Yep.
person gained this amazing time with their child,
Mhm.
and that child got an intentional father.
Right.
You put those two together, the world will be better for it,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
right? Yeah, I think I got lost in that thought too, but it's just I think these are important, in the community that hears this is really the stronghold of these conversations.
Right. Well, I think something I want to emphasize in what you're saying too is there's nothing wrong with disagreeing with people. I think sometimes we feel like if we don't agree with the people we're talking to, something's wrong. I'm a big believer in like, I want to hear different opinions.
Yeah.
But where I think a lot of people get tripped up is we've been taught that we have to advocate for our side of the argument.
Yeah.
And we can't give any ground. Right. Now, here's the thing. I will happily have a conversation with someone that's willing to listen both ways. And what I don't want to necessarily talk about why you're right and I'm wrong or
Right.
vice versa, but why is that important to you? What's important about that to you? And when I get to hear about that, I'm not necessarily saying I have to agree with your thinking, but if I take the time to understand why that's important to you, what matters about it, that may have me kind of go, oh, I can respect something about that. It
Right.
doesn't necessarily mean it's changing my opinion. And if you're willing to reciprocate and hear what I'm having to say, I think that matters. But a lot of the times, and I'll use politics as a perfect
Oh, I
example,
mean, yeah.
you're either on this side or that side. And if you don't agree with me, but nobody's willing to say what's underneath it, like what are we
Yeah.
ultimately trying to do? And because of that, the conversation is always I'm right, you're wrong, you're the villain, I'm the good guy. And
Yeah.
it's like we're never getting anything done. And so if we can start to shift to the place of being curious and listen more, like my mother used to say, stop broadcasting and start tuning in.
Yeah.
That's an important lesson, you know. The more I can listen to people, the more I hear what matters to them, and sometimes I see the humanity in them in a way that I wouldn't if I had just stayed rooted in what I feel is right.
Right. Do you think that's an issue of identity?
I think there's a lot of layers to it. Like I don't think we
Of
can.
course.
I don't think we could narrow it down to just one specific thing.
But I put it in the sense of like a box, right? So I
Mhm.
mean, politics, the problem,
Yeah, we
in
won't
my
go into that minefield. Yeah,
no, but
yeah.
when you make it your identity, then when it comes across as someone disagreeing with the concept or the party or whatever, then
Mhm.
you because it's your identity, they're disagreeing with you.
Well, and so here's where I think I would push back on that. If that's how you're holding it, then your ego is having the conversation.
Right.
Right now, somebody can. I have my values and my beliefs.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. If someone has a very different view, again, if they're willing to be respectful in the conversation, I'm willing to engage in the conversation. But if
Yeah.
all they want to do is make me wrong because of who I am and that
Right.
identity as you're talking about, then it doesn't matter what I do. But I think if I'm so rooted in, I can't hear somebody criticize my beliefs. Um, like I think you need to do some work because we all have work to do and none
Yeah.
of us are absolutely right. And so I think that's where the people that I see that can have the healthiest conversations are willing to go, okay, I don't agree with what that person's saying. And even though it feels like what they're saying is a personal attack on me,
Right.
it might
Yep.
not be. Much like you were talking about before, sometimes it's that fear response they have.
It is. Yep.
Their identity is being threatened. And so they may go to that fight or flight response
Right.
and lash out. And so somebody's got to take a breath and go, let's let some of the air out of this situation.
Right. And when you take it to parenting, and it goes for a lot of things, but when I
Right.
say that box, right, it's that it's that feeling or that conversation really that you have with yourself of like, this is how I was brought up.
Mhm.
This is all I know. So this is what I do.
Right. Mhm.
So now your identity is that box, whatever that box was,
Exactly. Yep.
right?
Yep.
And then growth, I mean, it almost can't happen
Right. I
because
think we have
because
to
you
be willing
close
to
that
let that
box.
box be opened up and expanded,
Right.
right? Like,
Right.
I know when I went off to college, it was a very different experience for me, right? I was in a different part of the world, and so I had to live a different experience, and I was still me, but I
Mhm.
think if we are open to new experiences and new ideas, doesn't mean, again, that we have to buy into them and believe them.
Yeah.
I think that's the important thing. It's about getting out of our comfort zones. If we're only willing to do the things that we've always done, like, that's just not gonna solve anything.
I guess I think the question or the word identity, I put it to like where like my identity is being a father.
Mhm.
That's what it is, right?
Yep.
But then it's also a learner. If I can put that identity there,
Mhm.
right? Then the only thing I can do is go learn because that's my identity,
Right.
right? But that's not necessarily the case for me. I'm like if if I'm here to be this man that my wife and my daughters need. That's what I want.
Right.
I'm a man of service. I want to serve them. And I'm also, I think you said this earlier, and also
Mhm.
I'm a learner. And
Right.
also I work here. And
Right.
it's like I try not to put the box around it.
Yeah.
And when I've seen issues, particularly with men and their daughters, from being able to talk to men,
Mhm.
is that it almost feels like we close that box up,
Right.
right? And it's like, uh, um, the easiest way to say this is like when you talk to someone who, I don't know, it's like that one jerk at work, and you're like, you don't have to be a jerk, man. It's like, that's the way I am. Like, yeah, but you don't
So
have to,
they're choosing that,
right?
right? Yeah. Yeah.
So you close that box, and that identity
Right.
doesn't allow you to do anything else.
Right.
I think it goes on to politics and all the other things. I've been asked to comment on politics, and I'm like, nah, that's not
No.
that's not my identity. I don't
No.
identify with one side or the other. I want
Mhm.
to have a conversation. I want to think through things and um, discern through information.
Mhm.
Right? Like I don't
Absolutely.
identify this way,
Right.
and so that's where I guess I was going with that is when
Yeah.
we're looking at fatherhood. You know, I guess, in a way, my identity is a girl dad. That's just who I am.
Well, here's the thing, I think. We often simplify and we want to put a label on someone.
Yeah, yeah,
But just like you said, you are that and you're so many other things.
yeah,
So, yes, you can have that label of father, but you just said you're also a learner. You serve people. Like there's so many things, but what we often do is we just focus on the one label that feels convenient for
yeah,
us and we forget that there's so much more in that person too. And for me, that's why I think it's important. And again, I don't always get it right. I
yeah,
try. But for me, sometimes it's like going back to, again, I'm a big believer in curiosity. How do I get curious beyond just what I've already assumed about the person? You
yeah,
know, people here, former Marine, veteran. I worked in construction when I got out of the Marine Corps. And so they already have a presumption of how I'm going to
yeah,
show up as a man. And then when I bring vulnerability, they're like, they don't know what to do with it
yeah,
because they've already put me in a box of how I will show up. And so that's why for me, I really encourage people go beyond the assumptions you have, get curious about that person because we see this much of their life
right,
and it's this massive thing.
absolutely. And especially with social media, I mean, you're looking at
Oh my goodness. Don't
this
even get me started about social
highlight
media.
reel of
That 30-second video you put on whatever
that's right,
program you use or channel you use, and it's like, but we don't see the other 24 hours and 59 and a half minutes and like
absolutely.
where your stuff is just an S storm, right? Like,
Just
yeah.
trying to figure it out as you
Yeah.
go.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
When we're talking about all this, it brings to mind like you said the word ego, right? And I happen to believe that that is a big hurdle that some
Mhm.
men have to have.
Absolutely.
Excuse me, have to jump
Overcome.
over,
Yeah.
kick down, what have you. I want to believe that now being the only male in my house of four women,
Mhm.
two female dogs, um,
You aren't messing around, my man. Like
telling you,
you're just doing it.
I I feel like that it's kind of gone. Not gone. Ego, we know again, you
Right.
can't put it in a box, right? Ego
Mhm.
drive makes you drive forward to things and do things, and it's good, but it can take over. With your experience talking to men, with your experience with your daughter,
Mhm.
at what point do you think ego has to be completely subdued in order to start the real learning process of fatherhood?
I mean, honestly, the sooner you learn that lesson and you accept it,
Yeah.
you know, that's it. You know, it's like, again, I love the movie The Matrix. To me, the line comes up like, there's a difference between knowing the path and walking the path, right? That
Mm,
Morpheus says to Neo. And I don't know, like, I can't pinpoint the moment it happened. It probably happened in degrees as well. Like, it wasn't like one day, bam,
yeah,
I've
yeah.
let go of ego because it still happens for me. I have moments where it kicks in. Like when my daughter was learning to drive last year. Now, we were smart. We got her a professional to teach her. Could I
Mm,
have done it? Absolutely. But I also know, like, I sometimes can't get out of my own way.
yeah.
But where you're talking about ego, one of the ego checks that I had is I remember one day she was driving to school after she had her
Mhm.
permit. And I'd said something and I could tell already it didn't land.
Mm,
Like something was off, right? And my daughter, great kid, like she doesn't want to rock the boat, but I could tell something was bothering. So when we had stopped and got to where we're going, I just said, "Hey kiddo, like I think I'm not helping right now." So I
mm,
said, "I know you want feedback. What will help you?" And she said, "Papa, when I do something wrong, don't tell me because I probably already know it and I'm beating myself up for it.
mm.
What I need to hear is when I do things right." I'm like, "Got it, kiddo." I said, "I will do my best. I may still miss the mark
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
sometimes." But then what that did is it allowed me to go, okay, let me and again, it's like typical, I want to say conditioning, but
Yeah,
and this is a
yeah.
bad analogy. Please don't rake me over the coals for it. But it's like training a dog. You reinforce the behavior you want to see. And so positive reinforcement is always better. And so if I say, hey, that was a great job. You did a great job keeping your speed, making that corner, that's going to help her feel more confident.
Right.
Right. And so I say that because I think the more that we start to, for the fathers that are looking to be better dads, so I did it when one of the best things I ever did, and I thank my wife for it, my ex-wife now, but I'll call her my wife at the time, is when our daughter was getting ready to be born, she signed me up for this program called Boot Camp for New Dads. And it's a
Okay.
program they run it all over the country, and I think they're international in some places. But Greg Bishop and his wife, Allison, oh my God, I will plug that forever. It was like a 3-hour class. And of all the classes that my wife and I did before our daughter was born, that was hands down the best one ever. Because what it was, they called them veteran dads. There were guys in there with babies.
Yeah.
And then the rookie dads were the guys that were about to become parents, right? And they got to talk about the real stuff that you probably wouldn't talk about in front of your wife or your partner because you're worried about it. But what I saw was guys being dads. Babies were crying, diapers were changed, and they just handled it.
Yeah.
And so I say that because if we start to let dads see examples of dads being good dads, they're going to step up. One of the things that we would often talk about is gatekeeping, because mothers would sometimes feel like they know how to do it. Now, I'm pretty sure they don't have the instruction book either, but
they make it look easy though.
Yeah, but we don't know what they're struggling with either, because we also run a boot camp for new moms class, by the way. But the problem is we don't often have those conversations. And so one of the beautiful things is when my daughter was born, my wife had a C-section. And so I had to step up and do a lot more right away. Now, I don't wish a C-section on anybody, right? But I'm glad it happened because I changed most of the diapers for that first few weeks. I was doing a lot of the feedings, not because my wife didn't want to, but because she wasn't physically able to. She was recovering from major surgery. And so I think that really helped me step in and go, okay, like I can do this. And I share that because for the dads that are out there wondering, am I doing a good job? Like, jump in and do it, right? Like, there's no one right perfect way. And anybody who's going to tell you how to parent your child that isn't your partner, they can go pound sand. Like, I got less polite words for them than that.
Yep.
But you're trying to figure it out too, And so, like, get in and do it. And that's why, like, when I see a dad out with his kid, I say, hey, great work, Dad. I don't know who he is. I don't know what he's doing, but I want to let him know, good job, Dad. Like, kid's not dying. You're out there doing it. Like, we need to hear that too. But we often tell moms you're doing a great job, but the dads don't hear it as often. So tell that dad, good work, right? Yeah.
And to that point, I mean, a lot of times you think, oh, you must be babysitting. It's like, no, right?
Don't even get me started about that. Yeah. So there was a Dad 2.0 summit that I used to go to, and one year I got one, and and I can't remember who it was. I should know, but they had these shirts that said it's not babysitting, it's parenting, or it's fatherhood, or something like that.
Yeah.
And I had the shirt on when I was traveling once, and this woman, I was buying like some food for us as we were traveling, and she said, "What do you mean it's not babysitting?" And I was like, I was already a little riled up. This is when I was a little less willing to be generous about people not saying I'm a dad.
Right.
But I just said, do you have kids? And she said, yes. I said, so if you're watching your kids, is that babysitting? She goes, no. And she was all offended. I said, so why is you watching your kids not babysitting? But if I'm watching mine, it is. And she was like, oh.
Right.
And I think that's it, though, because again, if you look at the way fatherhood is often portrayed in the media, we're the babysitter. We don't look at fathers as that responsible parent. And so the more we have these conversations and say, dads, like, you have every right to step up and just as much responsibility, the more they're willing to do it, the more they see it, the more they can go, oh, I can do that.
Media aside, because I think the answer on that one is no. Do you think we're getting better?
So yes is the short answer. And I don't think it's as fast as I'd like it to be. I mean, obviously. But I even think back several years ago. I remember there was a commercial in the Super Bowl, and I think was it Cheerios? It was something, but it was all these, like, the only lines were, it was a bunch of like girls saying dad. But it was all these different expressions. Like, one, like, you could tell she was excited. One, she was sad. Like, there was one was playing with a little kid.
Yeah.
But you started seeing more ads where dads were being actively involved and engaged, and they weren't portrayed as just that bumbling idiot. And like, the fact that you have this podcast, the fact that I have a podcast called The Vulnerable Man, 20 years ago, I don't know that it would have existed or that people would have been listening. So I think we're making progress. And I will come back to the media, because you look at some of the way men are portrayed as fathers, and it's shifting. It's still not where it needs to be, but I think we are making progress. And I think what's important is it's not just men having the conversation, but us having conversation with the women in our lives, because they're also conditioned to some degree on what a man is. Right. And so it's like, it's a conversation that needs to be had from both sides.
Yeah. Chris, brother, again, like we did at your show, we could probably sit here.
We could go on for days. Like, I mean,
Right.
yeah, we're just getting started, but yeah. So yes,
We're gonna have to do a part 2, guys.
okay.
We're gonna
All
have to do a
right.
part
Hey,
2.
I'm game. I always love having a conversation with you, Oscar.
Listen, it's great to have you on because not only are you in this phase of life with your daughter that I'm entering, so I have like a
Hang in there, my man. Strap in.
it's changing the narrative is important, right? Like
Absolutely.
we've talked about this before, where I still get it. It's normal. They'll be like, "Oh, you got girls. Oh man, it's gonna be bad, right?" And for a while, it was like, "Oh yeah, it's gonna be bad," you know.
Mhm.
But now I'm like, "Now we're good.
Right.
Like we're good." And
Yep.
and I'm not saying that we are good. I mean, it's a work in progress, just like anybody else. But the narrative is important. The narrative that we give to ourselves is important, and most importantly, I think the narrative that men give to other men is important.
Mhm.
And even if it's weirdly said to say, even if we are giving permission to other men to do these things by having these conversations, then so be it.
Right.
But to your point, to see another dude struggling with his kid, doing the thing they need to do, and then just doing it,
Right.
right? Like we don't often give that dude any credit.
Right.
I have gotten into the habit especially when I travel, of if I have a sticker or whatever, like, "Hey man, here you go. Like, good luck."
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
I've been there. I know what you're doing.
Yep.
But I think the narrative is important, and I think the narrative is starting to shift a little bit.
Mhm.
I think dads want to be more present, and there was a study that came from, I can't remember the name of it, so I'm not going to say it, online, reputable research center, saying that dads feel like they're not spending enough time and want to be more
Yes.
present now. So
Absolutely.
I think it's shifting, right? And once we figure this out and society, I guess, gets on board, we'll have a little bit easier way about it. But I still think that what you're doing with the Vulnerable Man podcast and talking to men, putting information out, creating that community that you've done so well is just so important. And I can't thank you enough for doing that. And then I can't thank you enough for coming over here, hanging out with us, and spending time with the daughter community, man.
Yeah. Well, thank you again. I know when I reached out to you and I'm like, man, I hope this guy wants to come on the show, but I'm reaching out and like want to talk about vulnerability. I think, as you're saying, the more we have these kind of conversations, the more it normalizes it. So thank you for letting me be in this conversation. And thank you for meeting me in it too, right? Like, I love that we can have this conversation. There's some things we agree, we may disagree. But what I hear in both of us is we're committed to being a great dad for our daughters. And that's the most important thing,
Absolutely.
right? Like, it's not about we've got to be perfect. My daughter isn't going to remember every time I messed up. What she's going to remember is the times that I was there for her, right? Now she'll remember some of the times I screwed up.
Oh yeah.
But, the overarching message is like, how did my dad show up for me? And so I really say that to encourage all those dads out there, like, keep showing up. It's not about being perfect, but like, get up and get in the fight, because that's what's going to matter. In the long run,
Absolutely.
we only have a limited amount of time. Like, the sad truth is, I got about a year and a half before my daughter goes off to college. And it's like,
Boy.
I don't even want to think about that, but like, I'm
Yeah.
excited for it. And I'm also sad. So cherish the moments. One of the best pieces of advice I ever got when I was my daughter was young is never miss a chance to hold their hand, because there will come a day where they won't want to do that.
Yep.
And so, cherish the moments and have these conversations, right? Keep it up. So yes, thank you, my man. Like, I'm grateful for you creating this podcast and helping girl dads, like, feel a little more comfortable and confident in what they're doing too. And, we'll keep having these conversations, and the more men we bring in, the more difference we make.
Absolutely, brother. Thank you so much. Guys, we're going to keep flying this plane as long as it goes.
Building it as we fly it. Yep.
That's right. We'll keep putting it together as we hit turbulence, and we'll get through it. We're going to have all of Chris's links in the show notes, so you'll be able to find them for his show. If you guys go to my pod roll, you'll see his show. Go there. I'm telling you, you won't regret it. In the meantime, guys, keep flying your plane, keep listening, keep watching the show. Thank you for your guys' support. And if I can ask anything of y'all, is to keep supporting the podcast so that we can continue doing the work that we're doing. Until next time, we'll see you all later. Hey, if you enjoy the Daughter Podcast, you'll love what we've got waiting for you at daughterpodcast.com. As soon as you visit,
you'll be prompted to join our new email newsletter, a resource packed with valuable insights, practical tips, and powerful perspectives straight from our podcast episodes and incredible guests. Don't miss out on the chance to join the community and strengthen your journey as a father. Visit daughterpodcast.com today and subscribe, because great dads never stop growing.